Welcome to this week's episode of the Building Texas Show. It's going to be an interesting conversation, and some of you may recognize my guest already. If you're from San Antonio, Jennifer Broome has had a long, storied career in media here and has a lot of stories to share. So I'm excited to get to know Jennifer through this conversation and to talk about all of the work she does around the world. But let's start with the introduction to those that don't know you. Jennifer, where would we know you from?
Well, a lot of folks, of course, within Texas do know me from the weather side of my life, the meteorologist part. I still consider San Antonio very much a home. The friends that become family, it's just such a unique, special place. So I've had this long television career as a meteorologist. I also hosted a show in Houston as well, actually hosted and helped to launch that TV show called Houston Life. Gosh, it seems ages ago
a
now.
Lifetime ago.
Yeah, it does. But now, I 100% freelance in all aspects of my professional life, and that ranges from doing travel and weather-related television segments, and then to writing articles. So there may be a day where I'm writing an article for AAA or I'm writing something for Denver Post, and then yet I may also be working on a segment for travel for something for the Weather Channel or for some local television stations, and then throw in there that I also do a lot of on-camera work. So, it's and have my own website and my own social media channels. So, it's kind of, I was a one-trick pony for a long time doing television weather, and realized very quickly back in about 2010 that I couldn't be a one-trick pony anymore. And it was because I was losing my job. I was told they were going in a new direction.
Yep.
And it ended up being the best thing. Sometimes you need that kick in the pants to really pursue your passion and go find what makes you happy.
It can be really scary to get that conversation, but if you can make the professional pivot and you can make it with enough clarity to say, what do I want to be doing? I'm so in awe of what you've just explained because we've watched it. And you have a YouTube channel and you have a website.
SweptAwayToday.com.
SweptAwayToday.com. And on YouTube, I look at your videos and your travel videos. It's a lot of the Weather Channel. It seems to be a really good hit. But with your meteorology background, that makes sense. But recently, about a month ago, I saw you post the Machu Picchu video where you're down there and you're talking about the first all-female team to do this hike into Machu Picchu. What a great opportunity. And to think about 2010, where do I go from a one-trick pony to everything you're doing now? What a story of success and entrepreneurial pivot.
Yeah, it honestly, I appreciate that because it's not an easy ride. And, I took that chance and I know how scary it is when you step into that unknown. But if you don't bet on yourself, no one else is going to bet on you. Yep. If you don't invest in yourself, no one else will invest in you. So taking that chance, and then moving forward. And since I went through and had that, okay, I'm going to give it a go. In 2017, really deciding, honestly, for personal reasons, my brother had passed away. I needed to be able to take care of my mother. She was the last surviving member of my family. Now she's gone, but I needed that time. Yeah. And I really, really was grateful that I said, I'm doing this for family reasons. So honestly, I put faith first, family second, and then everything else will fall into line after that. And within that family, that does include my friends that I also consider family. But taking that chance and parlaying it into an opportunity to do such things as trekking to Everest Base Camp, crossing the Arctic Circle, seeing the Northern Lights, standing on the equator, and then into what you were just talking about recently, it was such a almost... I stood back for a second when I was on the trek and to realize that in this day and age, it was the first all-female trek on the Salkantay Trail, which is an alternative trek, a harder trek in to Machu Picchu than the Inca Trail. Most people go in on the Inca Trail, but because of some over-tourism issues, they are now looking for other opportunities for people to spread the people out. And I'll honestly tell you, on the Salkantay Trail, we hiked for 3.5 days, seeing more horses than people. For me, that's my kind of trek. I enjoy those long distance treks and standing in the Andes Mountains and just being in a spot, realizing that I'm walking on the same trail as people did not only hundreds of years ago, but thousands of years ago. And it is that awe-inspiring moment where I felt so blessed to be included. And when I say it was all female, it wasn't just the trek members. It was our guide was female. We went with Alpaca Expeditions. They have more female guides than any other outfitter in the country of Peru. Which is, in and of itself, as a female, seeing the strides that they are trying to do to empower women within their own country. I was just greatly appreciative of that and listening to the stories, and then also talking with Marcella, our guide, and how much it means to her to be working for a company that empowers women. But it wasn't just the actual trek team, it was also our porters, and our porters and our cook/chef team was also female. So Marlene, and both of those ladies, I still keep up with, it's those moments of, there are tough times when you're trekking and you're carrying your pack, and then you see, here comes Marlene and the other three, that are our porter/cook team, and they are booking it. I did try to keep up with them twice. I kept up with them for a short amount of distance, and I learned it's a different step. That also, as we're talking about pivoting, pay attention to what other people are doing and how they're doing things, and take that moment to learn. And once I listened first, and then I realized it's not really a walk, it's not really a run, and it's not a jog. It's that trot kind of, it was like...
It's a trained lope.
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost like a horse that can get really comfortable in a lope and run forever. And I've seen it in these trek guides, and it just makes me, in our conversation, think about Americans traveling. I can imagine people sitting here saying, "Oh, this sounds like a luxury experience," but it really isn't. That's just how that type of trip happens.
Yeah.
You need all of that support, just like the base camp to Everest. Base camp is a misnomer, right? You've accomplished something hiking there, but you're not hiking there by yourself. You're hiking there with a team of experts to do it almost every day, because it's dangerous. It requires a known set of rules and expectations, and then the experience.
Some people do hike to base camp on their own.
Okay.
You can do it. I just would suggest, for a more enjoyable experience, and I truly feel like for a more integrated cultural experience, go with a guide. I went with my friend John Kudrowski. He has summited Everest multiple times. He was also there when the big earthquake hit in 2015. And he is somebody that I trust in, tremendously on the mountain. I'm actually going for Kilimanjaro with him in July 2025.
That's awesome.
So, and I think with that comes a lot of experience. And the fact that going for Everest Base Camp, we had a special opportunity because most trekkers only get to go to the rock, where it says, base camp, and it's 17,200 feet at that point. We had the opportunity to actually go into base camp. And that is where you have everyone that's there for weeks, months, that are hoping to go for the summit, because it's not a guarantee. It is obviously very weather dependent. Things happen. You can be very, very fit and feel great one day, and then you can feel horrible the next. I'll also say on our team, the person, if you looked at our trek group on that, the person that you would say was the fittest was the one who suffered severe altitude sickness and had to be helicoptered out the day that we were going to base camp. So it can be, it's sometimes the mountains win, sometimes you win. But we went into base camp, and it is a mile long. And I was feeling honestly horrible at that point. I just was like, I'm here, but that particular season was very dry. So I don't know if you've ever been on a glacier when the top layer starts to thaw. Everything is moving. Every step, something is moving, which can be a little unnerving. Even though you're probably not going to slide, but it's just a little that extra kind of, I'm walking through almost on marbles or, so we went in and had lunch and then came back out, and we ended up having to race out. I was going to do a Weather Channel live shot from base camp, but weather was changing. Clouds were coming in, which impacts the Everest link, the satellite to send out a live shot. So we booked it back to Gorkshep, which is about 16,900 feet. And my friend John was out there helping me, and both of us on our phones, both of us were just trying to get in. Can we get in? Can we get in? And one of us finally got it. And it was just this remarkable moment of as soon as the shot came up, it started snowing. And it made for an epic live shot. Having that opportunity to do a live shot from there, and then also having the opportunity to do one, going through the hoops to get the permits and everything for Machu Picchu. Of everything that I've done, and includes, flying with the Thunderbirds, the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, to jumping out of a plane with the Army Golden Knights, to standing in Katrina, to, a lot of really unique, very different experiences. It is those two live shots that the effort it took to get there. And kind of a culmination of everything in my career, going from television to weather to travel. It was both of those. So I'm excited to see what's coming next for me, because no opportunity is off limits.
You say you Kilimanjaro in 2025. I can't imagine what your calendar looks like. But a callback to it all goes back to that entrepreneurial pivot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people today in today's economy that are under that pressure of a job change or an unknown. Mm-hmm. But if you can make that pivot and find the joy and really put your experience together and package it the way I see you packaging this, you've created a beautiful life that really lets you do what you want to do.
I have. It's a very different life.
Yeah.
If you would have asked my 20, 25, 30, even 35-year-old self, and I'm 52 now, it's like, I always thought, okay, I'm going to have the traditional American dream of the husband, the 2 kids, the dog, the white picket fence, have all of that. And that's not the way that I was blessed. That's okay. I do live a very, very different life. It is not for everyone, but I think there are some lessons in my life that can help other people. And one of those being, if you are not happy in what you are currently doing, figure out what does make you happy. Do it while you have a full-time job to pay those bills, to make sure that there's food on the table. You really have to, and if it means that you have to get up at 4 a.m. because you need to work that into that 4 to 6:30 time frame before the kids get up and you have to get them off to school, then that's what you have to do. Yeah. You have to self-invest time, self-invest your energy in order to build something on the side that then hopefully one day you can take it into to be your full-time passion that can be a very lucrative thing for you.
Yeah. And just acknowledging that special thing that you're doing on the side is so important. It's important to you, and it's accumulation of what you enjoy doing. And then invest that discipline. And it is time and talent to build that early momentum. And in the best case, you get to go out and see it really flourish. Let's bring it back to Texas and the Building Texas show, because you've recently published a book. And I'm partial to San Antonio. I like the idea of there's 100 things to do in San Antonio. Where do you start, and how did that come together?
Well, so I co-authored it with my friend Adina Anderson, and we were approached about it, and I will honestly tell you, we signed a contract November 1st. We dropped the manuscript March 15th, and the book went for sale September 1st. That is an incredibly tight timeline, incredibly. And so it was, I agreed to it because I honestly wanted to learn the book publishing industry. I have had a lot of people ask me to write a book about some of my experiences and lessons learned on the road, traveling, what I'm seeing around the world, my grief journey. And I was like, well, I need to learn a little bit about that industry first. So this opportunity came along. We took it. It was at times overwhelming. There have been moments where, I've kind of had to step back and check myself. I've been in this sense of like, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm drowning, and I can't find the way to get air. And sometimes you just take the step back and breathe for a moment. But I really enjoyed looking at the city through a different lens, looking at it as a longtime resident here. I did live in San Antonio for a decade, and I'm back very frequently, but looking at it as well from that traveler, that visitor perspective. And then traveling the world and bringing that in of what other people think when they think of Americans, think of, of just the country of the United States. Texas is always, I mean, people know Texas. You can be anywhere.
I grew up as a kid in Europe, and you could say you're an American, and that's one thing. But if you say you're a Texan, it was in the 90s, so they immediately said, oh, it's like Dallas.
They still say that.
They still think it's like Dallas. And they were afraid to show us their horse stables because it wasn't what JR had. And that's not what our experience was either. But it was overwhelming for me as a kid to realize the Texan brand when you travel like that.
But it's such a beautiful thing, and it's so funny to me because there is a body language that happens. When somebody, when you mention Texas, San Antonio, because people actually do know San Antonio around the world, the Alamo, of course, which, kind of getting back to the book, that was one of the fun things to talk about, and finding unique ways and things that you may not necessarily know. And if you've lived here your whole life, why should you buy this book and read it and share it and do the 100 things. And it's to really go rediscover those places that make this city great and make this area great. We also included day trips and some different things in there and just that opportunity to really share it in a unique, very formulated book. It's with Reedy Press. The 100 Things to Do Before You Die series is done in cities all over the country. Is done in this, with other things like, for different states as well. And so that was a learning lesson, having to write a book, but yet conform to a certain formula. But it's fascinating to me, like when you travel the country and I start talking about just getting in conversations with different cultures, and somehow Texas will come up or San Antonio will come up, and the body language that happens, it's almost like a little swagger gets into people's step, but it's a lightness and a brightness, and I think that is such a wonderful way to think about this state, and the people that live here and the joy that Texans bring to people in other places, and it's the friendliness. It's the, can I help you? It's the, hi, how are you? Yes, it's the y'all. But inherent having that little extra y'all, and people around the world will say it to you as well. The openness to have a conversation and look people in the eye. And in a sense, as you travel, say, hey, I don't know your culture. Show me something about it. Tell me about it. People want to share their experiences with others. We inherently want to have conversations and want to bring people in to our own lives and our own space. And that's what traveling around the world does. And it's just so fun when people react, and it is. I mean, it's like when people say, oh, where are you from? Where have you lived? Where do you live now? I'm originally from South Carolina. So, growing up there and having that Southern hospitality and Southern culture, very similar to growing up in Texas. It's that genteel feel in life, and knowing that you make a handshake deal with somebody, you stand behind that handshake. There's meaning to that. It's important. You stand behind your word, and you want to have conversations, and you want to have the experiences on different levels.
Well, so many people have a tie to San Antonio because of Military City USA. And I hear all these stories, especially when people are post-career coming back, saying, I had such a great experience here at one point in my life or at a convention. So many people come here for conventions. Across the country, there's a connection to San Antonio that's unique. But then I think of the people that have moved here, not really knowing. I mean, I saw a stat this week where San Antonio is the fastest growing city in Texas. And
one of the fastest growing for years in the country.
And the 7th largest. I mean, we're a big city that feels like a lot of villages. And my concern is there's so many people here that have been here for generations that don't know those 100 things in San Antonio themselves because they've missed it. Or the new people that are here. But then the history of San Antonio, like I love to tell the story. Data Point is a book back behind you because the personal computer was invented in San Antonio, Texas. And the connections to technology, entrepreneurship, and founding Southwest Airlines, USAA. Fritos, yeah. So many great stories, HEB.
Yep.
So many great corporations and leaders of people have come out of this community, and it's not celebrated fully as I would like to see it, because that history has really made San Antonio the city it is and defines Texas in so many ways.
You know, it's interesting. One of the things, and of course, with it being Military City, USA,
Yep.
as it's called, yes, it's Alamo City, but it's also Military City, USA. One of the things that I learned, yes, of course, I think everybody knows the military presence here, but you may not know 39,000 people graduate from military training every year in this city. That's a lot of people coming in to the city for training, and a staggering number, I think, and just how significant it is. It speaks volumes, as you were talking about, that people come here for, say, basic training, come in for basic training, and then go and have their military career or go on to something else, but then come back here to live, or go and are deployed and do their military service, come back here to live. It is a great area to live in. It's still an affordable area to live in, which seems to be getting harder and harder to find these days in this country. And it's a family-friendly place. But I also kind of feel like you do too, in a sense, it does feel like some villages. People that live on the far north side aren't necessarily going to go check out what the new hottest thing is on the south side, or the very old thing on the south side, which is the Missions, which happens to be my favorite area in the city. I get that chance whenever I can just to take off and go and visit all 5 of the missions, because each one is different and unique. And I feel like each visit you see something different. And honestly, for me, it's a moment of realizing how far this city, this country, this state, all of it has come. But it's self-reflection in myself of, okay, go to something old to see where you are, and to potentially give me that creative energy for something new. On the flip side, I think it's hard for folks from the south side to come up to the north side and see some different things, whether, far north side and going beyond, to experience some of those different things, to experience, the wine country, to experience the fabulous changes that are happening in places like Broome. The growth that's happening, but yet this stronghold to the past, and which at times people can say, oh, that it's kind of the clash of decades, a little bit, but with growth, you need to acknowledge the past, and it does right for a beautiful story, and open up the doors of allowing more people to experience the heritage here and experience the melting pot of cultures that is uniquely not just San Antonio but also Texas, and the blending of cultures, and the moving forward, and the helping of each other. And I think for me, being on the entrepreneurial spirit, having a career where I was always working for a corporation, which is in television, you work for corporations, then going out on my own, one of the hardest things for me has been to admit I need help. And to ask for that help. I mean, look, I'm a very strong woman and I can hang with the best of them, but we're all vulnerable, and you cannot do it alone. You just can't. And to get to that point where, in a sense, I've had to wave my white flag of I need help to come in, whether that be helping me with some video editing so that I can get out all of this tremendous culture and the stories that I so desperately want to share and tell of other people's journeys, other people's lives, other cultures, other countries, other cities, other states, just other places in this incredible place that we call home. And being able to say, I need help, and kind of figuring out, how do I rework that? Because, the reality will be that as you go and try to build your own thing, you are going to hit the point where you have to ask for help. And you are going to hit that point of, I am so overwhelmed, I don't know which way is up. And you have to step back and say, okay, I'm going to get this project done. Especially somebody like me who always has 100 balls up in the air.
I'm going to get done on this flight in between this, that, and
that happens a lot. But then I also enjoy talking to the people that are sitting next to me. My flight in from Denver to San Antonio, I had this delightful couple And she travels internationally a lot for work. Their 5-month-old baby on second flight ever. And I, having that conversation of, I love that they are already doing it and not just saying, oh, I had a baby, I got to, and she's like, she was funny about it. She goes, people are shocked that we're doing it. Her own family members shocked that they're jumping on planes, but that was their life before. Yeah. And I look at her, I said, well, what you're doing is that you are creating that next generation of travel lover and somebody who's curious. And I think my weather career is what gave me this unique, I always call myself a Curious George because I'm just like the Curious George character. I want to go and learn. I'm so curious about every aspect of, going to a new place. And I go in with almost just like this childlike wonderment. Mm-hmm. And to go through the world like that, childlike wonderment, but the solo female traveler, you got to have it these days. Solo
female traveler. I appreciate that you said that because I've had a friend in particular that has made me aware of the corporate travel reality for females traveling by themselves. It's very risky. It can be very dangerous, unnerving.
Yep.
And I just want to plug, there's some great products out there. They're like little travel kits that you can alarm your door. You can do all kinds of things to give you a little bit more peace of mind. But that's a conversation. If there was a book that could be written, the survival guide for a female traveler would be a really interesting topic because I had never thought about it through that lens. And I really appreciate that somebody helped me see it that way and see how hard it is for a solo female traveler to really do all the things you're talking about.
But it's not even, for me, it's not just a solo female traveler. It's also a very American looking solo female traveler who wants to,
you stick out
a little bit, but some of the, and I do speak often on the topic. I actually wrote and I was kind of surprised by the onslaught of the exposure and how it went viral. I wrote an article for AAA on 25 tips for solo traveler dealing from the road trips, because I do that. I am going for all 429 National Park Service sites.
Awesome.
I've hit 230, including 44 national parks.
There's some great video clips of those, by the way, arches and everything else. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, but a lot of those I do solo. Yeah. So there is one thing that I broke it down. I was like, let me just think, what is it that I do in every place? And I'll honestly tell you, when I'm on a trail, and I hike solo frequently as well, it's not necessarily the bear or the mountain lion or the moose that I'm worried about. My biggest fear comes from the animal on two legs. Yep. And that's a reality.
Hard reality.
It is a hard reality. And then traveling the world as a solo female traveler, there are a lot of things that I do. I typically will stay in a hotel when I'm traveling solo. And I particularly like staying in a boutique, small, locally owned hotel. Not to knock any of the big ones, but if I am traveling alone, I just feel like the smaller hotels, the more intimate ones, give me an experience that's a little bit more authentic, which is a word that can be overused a lot. But I do typically will choose to stay in hotels because I want a record of my comings and goings. I know I'm showing up on camera. I want that to happen, but I'll go a step beyond that. And when I'm checking in, I make sure I talk to the person that is checking me in. How are you? What's your favorite coffee shop? Do you have a recommendation for a lunch spot? Ask something simple like that. You don't have to ask what's your favorite spot for dinner, but ask coffee shop or lunch or breakfast, because that's attainable for most people in any walk of life. Yeah. That's the socioeconomic backgrounds, those, or your favorite market, or what's your favorite park?
Don't ask them about the amusement park that they can't
go to. But have that face to face more than just checking in. Here's my credit card, because what you're doing is by having a brief conversation and asking even just how are you, you're imprinting on their brain. They're going to remember you. They're going talk to the valet guys, talk to the person that's opening the door. Again, just saying hello, saying hi goes so far. And by doing that, I know I'm making that extra record. So if they don't see me, They know that, it's not 24, 48 hours that goes by. It's now condensed to 12 hours or less if they haven't seen me in that time span. And it's an important thing. You're going and you're traveling in the world, especially as a solo traveler, because things are happening frequently. And it's not just a medical emergency that you might encounter. It's also the natural disasters that are happening, also civil unrest. There are many different reasons that you may need to quickly get out of a country or need support. And I'm also going to say, if you're going to a country that speaks a different language, learn a few words.
Just try. I learned that as a kid. Just trying to speak the language first gave them so much pleasure, and they want to help. But then they could speak fluent English, and it would help me. But it was so much easier because you built that connection trying. And I appreciate that what you're talking about is really building a connection with the people enabling your experience. And then they become a safety net. They become eyes and ears for you. They're looking out for you.
They become friends.
Yeah, some of the best people you'll know. And I saw that as a kid growing up around the world and just seeing the different cultures. You also go to some countries that they speak different languages. They have different beliefs. As a female traveling into some Middle Eastern countries, some African countries, others around the world.
South American, it's
everywhere.
all over the world.
You have to be aware of, and men too, right? Americans, we kind of walk in, this is who we are, and the freedom to do that is really wonderful in this country. It is not shared around the world. So you do have to be respectful where you are locally and not put yourself in those dangers too.
I honestly feel like as Americans, we live a very privileged life in this country. It is an amazing country. It is a wonderful country filled with inherently good people. But when you go to another country, there are certain things that I will do, and that includes spending time researching what is appropriate. You are a visitor, you are a guest in their home. And you have to acknowledge that. You have to think about, well, if I'm going to, I kind of think of it as, if I'm going to, say, friends of my parents' home, how would I react and how would I act? And there are, it's kind of be on your best behavior, a type of mentality, and know it's appropriate. This outfit with my shoulders showing is not appropriate in a lot of places around the world. I have to acknowledge that. It's not appropriate in certain buildings and structures. For example, going into, if I'm in Italy, if I'm in Europe, if I'm in any type of religious building around the world, I need to make sure that I am dressed appropriately. So honor that and don't argue about it. You're not there to change it. No, you're not going to. You're there to respectfully understand it, be a part of it, and then go home. Yeah. And if you're in a situation that you want, and I frequently do this, have conversations about something, a cultural practice that you might not understand. Have that conversation with somebody, but ask them, may I ask you some questions? I'm curious. I don't want to offend you, but can I ask some questions? And if you phrase it that way, almost anyone is going to say, ask me. Open door, ask me. And I mean, I've had that conversation from the Taos Pueblo in New Mexico to Nepal to, to various different places around the world. Trying to just say, you can't know everything, but I want to understand. But also when you are traveling, as you were just saying, make sure you visit with respect and be open to the lessons that are going to come your way. Because if you're open to it, you're going to be treated to a very different experience than if you go in there and say, I'm going to come in here, take all my pictures, and quickly get out. Give yourself that moment. I had to do that, for example, when I was trekking to Everest, just going into some of the monasteries and things. I wasn't allowed to film in every. And as somebody who lives in a very visual medium and a visual world, that can be a little challenging. But it was also a blessing in disguise, because I just took those. I was like, those are memories that I can take, kind of share the outside of it, but the inside and the beauty of those, and watching the prayers in progress, and learning a little bit about the culture, and spending time, especially with Geljan, the guide who stayed with me, because on that trek, I was the oldest member of our team, the oldest and the slowest, but the one who had the most fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way it is. You know, I was a trekker, not a climber, and some of our group went and did climbed Lobuche, so it gave me extra time with Geljan, and I honestly still hear from. I mean, I trekked in 2022. I still hear from Geljan on a very regular basis. I mean, at least every 2 to 3 weeks, something, you know, because it's so easy, and that is one thing that I do love about internet and being connected socially. Yes, and how that does really connect you around the world. But it's also that fascinating aspect, too, of, gosh, somebody on the other side of the world, what an incredible experience I had with that person. But yet it spurs in me so much more that I want to experience. And, you know, but anytime I am going to a country, you know, say, you know, India is still high on my list to get into. I am going this year, for a conference, I'm going into Turkey for the first time. I think a lot of folks will be surprised to find out that Istanbul is considered one of the safest cities in the world for a solo female traveler. So I'm looking forward to having that chance to spend time before the conference of just exploring a vastly different culture than what I've grown up with, what I've traveled to, because it is such a unique blend of Middle East, Asian, European cultures, all in a beautiful city. So, you know, and then, you know, getting some time back in Africa to hopefully write my second book, my first solo book, and share those stories, and a little bit more of a memoir book, and just to get back, and there's a reason why, you know, so many people, when they get that opportunity to go to Africa once, and it is a once in a lifetime dream, bucket list trip for so many people, and they say as soon as you leave, you find nothing more that you want to figure out how can you get yourself back. And I'm a true testament of that. I got back on a Friday, and that next Tuesday, I was buying my one-way ticket to Cape Town to write a book. You don't have a plan. You know, it's like, figure it out. You figure it out. But to go experience the world and the blessings that the world gives back to you, you know, it's such a joy. It's such a joy to be able to share it.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to visit with us today. We wanted to celebrate the book about San Antonio and celebrate everything you've done for our community, leading us through these conversations, whether it's the weather and the news and the channels, or following you on your website, swept-away-today.com, and on all the social platforms where you've got almost 4,000 videos out there from around the world that are all great to look at.
More coming.
More coming. And what I appreciate in this episode of the Building Texas show is this is all the result of an entrepreneurial pivot. You had a job change. You had a lot of life that has happened. We didn't get into a lot of those stories. We'll save those for your next book. Yeah. But you bet on yourself. You're investing in yourself, and you've created something that does really prioritize what brings you joy, what you want to be doing, and created a life that many would love to watch and be a part of, and I'd encourage that.
You know, it's so funny because this book I've had so many like full circle moments, and how when I accepted a meteorologist job in San Antonio in 2000, I had no idea how much the city, this region, Texas, was going to change my life. And, you know, it's interesting. I had a recent trip down to San Miguel de Allende, and in 2006, I was going through a very difficult personal time. And in a sense, I ran because I was trying to just get away and really refocus my life. And how was I going to survive what I was going through? But I had the opportunity to return there. And I was so many times on that trip, seeing it, you know, over Labor Day of 2024, going, I wish I could have told that girl, you know, I mean, almost 20 years ago, and she was, even though she was an adult, she was a girl, how far she would come. And it would all come from being in this city, and having the opportunity to grow and to come full circle with the book and to be able to share the city through a different lens and the region has been just such a joy and a blessing. And, standing in the Twig Bookshop, one of my all-time favorite independent bookstores in the country, and realizing I have a book on the shelf with my name on it that I co-wrote, with a dear friend, and how this community here, because it is such a unique melting pot of cultures and special place with it being, military city USA, really military region USA is kind of a way. And how many people have ties to South Texas, to the state of Texas. And if you are thinking about that you want to launch someone, don't be afraid to let your friends in on your secret. Because, look, I kept my secret for a long time. And don't be afraid to ask for help, because you never know who's going to be that person and which one of your friends is going to say, hey, wait, I have somebody that I think you should talk to. And use your connections, use your friends, but keep your friend boundaries too.
Yeah.
That's important as well.
It could be the next stranger that walks into your life and completely unknown, they might be the mentor that's going to help you make that pivot.
Texans are good at talking, and that's the one thing that I think, have the conversation, because you never know.
Yeah, and be bold in it. And I'll finish on tell your story, and I think you've done that beautifully today. You can package your story, but no one else is going to tell your story for you. So if you're a founder, if you're an author, if you're somebody wanting to make that pivot, the more you can write it down and kind of get it where you can say it over and over again with pride and confidence, that's going to open so many doors.
It really is. It's that whole thing. You said write it down, and that is key.
Yeah.
Write down what you wish for, what you want, what you dream of, what you hope for, what you are.
Yeah.
What you are is key. Write it down, because again, nobody else can tell your story better than you.
Yeah.
So tell your own story, and then, and a lot of folks, as you're going in that entrepreneurial spirit, not all media is bad.
No.
It's, talk to and get to know your media community as well. Start at local. I'm such a fan of local media, because it is the one thing that changed my life. And it's, once a reporter, always a reporter. So it is kind of fun to be on this side of it. And I enjoy that as well.
But people don't understand San Antonio is a huge media market. There's a lot of early testing that happens here. There's a lot of early talent that comes through here. It's a development, from what I've learned, it's a development city in so many ways for national shows, national media. And
there are a lot of TV shows that are shot not just in San Antonio, but throughout Texas.
Yeah.
But San Antonio in particular, there are a lot of people in the news business here that choose to stay here.
Yeah.
And you also see that in other cities across the state too. And it is because of the way of life. It is because, again, it's an affordable place to live. But you're right. There's a reason why this state's known around the world, and many reasons why, and that's just one of them. There's so much connection of, yes, it is the iconic Western American lifestyle and what people in other countries, when they think of, 100%, that idyllic, what is America like? Well, it's Texas. But it is also, too, not just in San Antonio, but in places like Houston and Dallas and in Austin, so much technology that is happening, the medical advancements that are happening in this state.
The commercialized space industry. We've got 1,800 companies trying to go to space for private reasons.
Which is so cool. And if somebody wants to give me the chance, I'll go in 2 seconds. But also too, just what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
The technology, and Texans are figuring out a way to do it where you can still add in that dose of personality and kindness too is a big thing.
Well, Jennifer Broome, it has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you today, to hear your story of the pivot and what you've created out of it. And then 100 Things to Do in San Antonio is a great book. Go out and buy it. It's for sale now. And then let's set up a wait list for your future book, because I want to hear the stories and understand, because there's a lot of stuff coming out of this next book.
There is. It's going to be
put pressure on you or anything.
No holds bar. Yeah, it is that look at myself and realizing that I have to be vulnerable enough to share the good, the bad, the ugly, and the great, and I'm gonna do it.
Well, you are all of those things, and I so appreciate that you're sharing it with the world. You've shared it with us for a long time. You've taken a lot of families through tough weather situations, news, and now you're giving a view around the world to the people that have been following you. So thank you very much for the way you're building Texas and making us visible on a global scale.
Thank you.